When Jesus was in the desert, the devil tried to tempt him to worship someone other than God. Jesus resisted because worshiping someone or something other than God is idolatry. The Salvation Army's second doctrine states, "We believe that there is only one God who is infinitely perfect, the creator, preserver, and governor of all things, and who is the only proper object of religious worship." People have always been tempted to worship something other than God. The devil tempted Jesus to do that. Then John wrote to Christians warning them to keep away from idols. He explained that there is only one true God, and we know him through the person of Jesus. Let's read 1 John 5, verse 20. We know also that the Son of God has given us understanding, so that we may know him who is true. And we are in him who is true by being in his Son, Jesus Christ. He is the true God and eternal life. John outlined the main reason why we worship God, because he is the only true God. That means he is the only one worthy of our worship. Worship is giving our entire being in humble adoration and recognition of someone's worthiness. God is the only one worthy of this act. There are other reasons that we worship God. Worship changes our perspective. When we focus on God and take our eyes off of ourselves, we see that God's greatness is bigger than our biggest problem. We also experience God's presence when we worship. God inhabits the praises of his people. Worship is communion with God. It's acknowledging and experiencing the reality of his presence. Worship transforms us. It can change our attitude and even our mood. God has wired creation to point to the Creator. He has wired us to worship. He has put in us a way to be transformed when we encounter him. Worship brings people together. It is a shared experience of God's presence and activity in our life. Although deeply personal, we can love God and love one another in worship. Finally, anyone can worship. There is no special skill set needed to worship. You don't have to be a professional singer or musician. A true worshiper doesn't need a certain style of music or a certain kind of preacher. A true worshiper is less concerned with the environment and more interested in giving God glory for who he is and all that he has done. Clearly, worship is so much more than what we do on Sundays. It's a personal experience of communion with our Creator. Worship is beyond Sunday services, and it's a very personal thing. That doesn't mean we can stop worshiping together in community. In fact, it's a privilege to worship together. Under Old Testament law, people had to worship in one place with one mediator and only on certain days. Worship had to take place in the temple. Only Jews could come inside the outer walls. Gentiles, which means everyone who is not a Jew, had to stay outside. Then only Jewish men could go into the inner court to offer their worship to a priest, which they did by giving a sacrifice. Then only the priest could go into the next court to offer the sacrifice. Finally, only the high priest could go into the Holy of Holies where God dwelled, and he could only do that once a year on the Day of Atonement. But Jesus changed all of that for us. He opened up a way for everyone to worship God personally, without a priest, and corporately without being separated by race or gender. He came as the great high priest so that everyone could come to God. Let's read Hebrews 4, verses 14 through 16. Therefore, since we have a great high priest who has ascended into heaven, Jesus, the Son of God, Let us hold firmly to the faith we profess. For we do not have a high priest who is unable to empathize with our weaknesses, but we have one who has been tempted in every way, just as we are, yet he did not sin. Let us then approach God's throne of grace with confidence, so that we may receive mercy and find grace to help us in our time of need. Jesus made a way for us to worship God without barriers. This includes a way to worship God all together as one community. And this community is important. Think about church and communal worship like the bark on a tree. Is a tree still a tree without the bark? Yes. We are Christians with or without church. However, bark protects a tree from the world around it, from insects and weather, for example. Worshiping together in community protects us from the world around us. We still live in the world. After all, a tree doesn't belong inside. It's meant to live where it has sun and fresh air. We are called to live in the world, but God uses our corporate worship to keep us strong as we follow Him. The author of Hebrews tells us not to give up meeting together. We worship in community to encourage one another and keep pointing each other to Jesus. And we worship personally because that's where we truly bow our hearts before the one true God.